Was that? No. It should go like this or something. It was this.
Right off the bat, you know you have 9 questions. It's going to go with this passage. I did not pass out the questions to you yet, although Nate somehow got one and Dylan somehow got one. The reason I didn't pass out questions is I think it's a best idea to read through passage first before you start taking a look at questions. I know some people will take a look at what's the first question, read through the passage, try to find the answer, then go to the second one, and you're kind of reading bits and pieces of the passage at a time. I think you're better off spending your whole time focusing on passage first before going to questions. So that's the reason that we kind of held off, that I didn't pass those out to you yet at this point. But when it says here that you have 1 to 9, 8 of those questions are going to be multiple choice, and then 1 of those questions would be that constructive response where you'd be writing your 7 to 10 sentences. Since this is module 2, that means we're dealing here with nonfiction at this point. So it's not necessarily a story that we're going to be taking a look at, but some kind of informational text passage. What's the title telling us?
Long, short goals.
What do you think that means?
Long-term
All right, so the key thing here that we're probably going to be focusing on is something with goals. When it comes to long and short, we'll pretty much deal most likely with long-term goals as well as short-term goals. So there's a good chance that we have something that's going to be at least a little informational about it. If it's informational, we want to make sure that we're able to find out what's the main point. It could be persuasive, where if it's persuasive, then we would want to try to identify what is their overall argument. So something within the first couple paragraphs that we want to look for is try to figure out what is the main element, what is the main point that these folks are trying to get across. If you don't know where you're going, you might wind up someplace else. So we got an opening little quote there from Yogi Berra. Notice there's some footnotes. So now at the bottom, if you don't know who Yogi Berra is, tells you they used to be a Major League Baseball player, manager for the New York Yankees.
No, he's a bear.
That is a cartoon character, Yogi Bear, not Yogi Bear. Is that like Keystone or something?
Yeah.
Haven't been there.
Oh, that's fantastic.
How do you get from where you are today to a tomorrow where what you want has a chance of happening? Answer, by taking action. Sure, it would be nice if simply making a wish or hoping for something good to happen or spending lots of time dreaming would lead to a better future, but life doesn't work that way. It's up to us to make our dreams real. A lot of times with nonfiction articles or passages, the last statement ends up being a main one that you want to keep track of. So it's up to us to make our dreams real. It's not something that's necessarily going to be handed to us. In other words, you or anyone else can't just want something and expect to get it. Instead, you need to figure out how you're going to get it. This is where goal setting comes in. Your goals are the how-to process for reaching your dreams. Connor, how do you reach your dreams? By setting goals. Okay? So, goals are how you're going to go about reaching dreams according to this passage. Amy, how about you do the next paragraph? What's your goal? One paragraph. It's a short-term goal.
You're fine.
That's fine.
Right or up? We do popcorn. Amy popcorn.
Popcorn Jack.
Ooh. You can't popcorn without reading.
At least I'll have to read.
Go ahead.
First paragraph?
Third.
Alright. Some goals can be achieved in a day, a week, or a month. These are called short-term goals. Others, such as being awarded MVP on your tennis team this season, or reading several Shakespeare's plays, may require a lot of time and effort. these are called long-term goals. Usually long-term goals are broken down into several short-term goals that help you keep moving toward your main goals. So in this sense, short-term goals can support your growth.
Okay, a couple things here. Jack said mentioned MVP. Said the 2 that comes after. Keep in mind that's your little footnote. So down at the bottom, if you didn't know what MVP was, that lets us know most valuable player. But it was good that you included it nonetheless. Short-term goals. What's our definition for short-term goals? Or at least what's our time span for short-term?
A day, a week, or a month.
So short-term goals, we're getting some examples as to something that you're going to try to accomplish within a day, a week, or a month, and certainly there could be other intervals let you know that you're looking at, a shorter amount of time. Things that are going to require more time to it are going to be long-term goals. An important aspect of this is generally what goes into long-term goals? Multiple short-term goals. So if you have a long-term goal, a good way of accomplishing it or getting to it is to have several short-term goals that help you out. If you are not a person who underlines or highlights, but you're more of like writing little notes, then on the side you could do multiple short-term goals equals long-term goal and things like that. Doesn't matter to me how you go about doing it, but I would want you to at least kind of interact or write with the text just a little bit here. Jack, are you popcorning?
Popcorn.
I don't want to.
Now you have to.
What short-term goals?
So wait a minute, you're going to read because he tells you to read, but you're not going to read when I ask you to read?
You're just gonna keep coming back to me, so I might as well do it. Right? Okay, fine. Tommy, do it. Tommy, go.
Excuse me, that's not what I
No, you got popcorn, you're good.
Fine.
So mad.
What short-term goals don't always have to support a long-term? See, this is why I can't do it.
You're doing fine.
No. I quit. Retired.
Two more sentences, that'll be our short-term goal.
Okay. For example, you could decide to have your goal is to finish your homework by the time your favorite TV show comes on.
Yep.
Someone else know?
No, you
No,
said
two.
two.
Two more sentences.
Or you could have a goal to. Oh my god. I can't do it.
Almost there. What could be your goal?
Okay. Or you could have a goal of exercising for 25 minutes today.
There you go. Thank you. Setting and reaching small challenges like these can get you in a goal-setting frame of mind. If you'd like, you can focus on a few short-term goals until you feel inspired to work your way up to goals that require more time to complete. What would be an important concept in this paragraph that would be worth noting? Short-term goals don't always have to support a long-term goal, so just because you have something that you're trying to accomplish in a short amount of time doesn't mean necessarily that it has to build up to something more significant. That could certainly be an important concept. What also then gets provided in here, since we're learning about some short-term goals, Dylan?
Focus on short-term goals until you're inspired to do a long-term goal.
Okay, so you could focus on those things until maybe you feel inspired to work up to something that's going to have that more time and effort, that long-term goal. So we still have a relationship. The other thing that's also going on here with mentioning about favorite TV show, exercising for 25 minutes a day, we now also start to get some examples coming in. So we're getting examples, we're still highlighting relationships, we're highlighting the potential that by doing some short-term goals could end up leading to some long-term things. My short-term goal, I'm going to do vocab list number 12 today. Long-term goal, maybe by doing multiple short-term goals, I'll improve my English standard. Longer-term goal, by getting A's on my report card, Chuck E. Cheese will give me more tokens to place.
What's a report?
That's true. You could no. Well, you might get like an email attachment of it. I don't know. What's happening right here? Goal setters in action. Listen up. So, Julie's telling us we're moving on to whatever that next issue, that next idea is going to be. Connor said new topic. Essentially, we now have some kind of heading. So this is going to be more common to see when it comes to a non-fiction passage, that there could be some type of heading here that's going to be taking place. So if it isn't bold or italics, all caps, something to kind of let you know that here's an important concept, you would want to definitely kind of pay attention to that one. I'll start this paragraph and then we'll go to someone else. When Tien left Vietnam at age 13 and arrived in the United States, she didn't know any English, but she came with the dream of becoming a doctor so that she could help others. Inspired by her grandmother, a highly respected herbal medicine doctor in Vietnam, Tien began setting short-term goals. First, she tackled English by learning 3 or 4 new words a day. She did it by reading children's books in the dictionary and by practicing new words in conversations with friends. What do we have?
Examples.
Now we have an example, and with it being a little bit of like a story taking place, specific type of example that this would be considered would be an anecdote. So it's an anecdote or it's a story that kind of ends up being an example for us. What's a short-term goal of hers?
3 or 4 words a day.
So the long-term goal would be probably learning English, and also that she wants to have become a doctor, but there's a short-term goal of I'm going to learn at least a few words a day that we're going to try to accomplish. Amy, who are you picking?
Better not mess up, Roman.
Where am I writing this here?
Yeah.
Tien's vocabulary group pushing, giving her confidence to set and achieve other goals. Today, she's on her way to achieving a long-term goal of becoming a doctor. It's not always easy, says Tien, but I stay motivated by reminding myself that all this hard work will be worth it in the end.
What would be a key word from this part that would pertain to goals as to why people might want to achieve certain goals?
Confidence.
Could have confidence, could certainly have, with that confidence, could also come like, the idea about staying motivated, but you have a reason that here you're trying to achieve those goals. And again, it reinforces the specific goal that we're looking at, is that being a doctor. Labeling your goals as short-term or long-term isn't the most important thing you'll need to know about the process. What's more significant is that your goals have the power of the 3 P's. In other words, there, and then we get our positive, personal, and possible. So, certainly the main idea here, we have 3 P's. What are they? Who's up? You do that. Positive.
Who could feel fired up about a goal like this? Stop being such a slob. Or this, practice my jump shot so I don't look bad to others moving forward. Be sure to phrase your goals positively to feel good about what you're trying to accomplish. How about clean my room twice a week and put on some music to make the job more fun? Or practice my jump shot for 20 minutes at least 3 days this week to improve my skills.
Okay, so the key thing to learn from here, be sure to phrase your goals positively to feel good about what you're trying to accomplish. Justice, who's next? Can't go back to Bill. No.
I'll read that. Huh? No. Personal, right?
Yep.
Remember that your goals must be meaningful to you. They have to reflect your dreams and values. This way, your guaranteed to feel more motivated to reach them. For example, 14-year-old Delfino values nature and loves to be outdoors, so we joined a hiking club. His dream was to become a nature guide. Delfino takes it one hike, one goal at a time.
All right, so we have something where we want to stay positive, phrase it in a good way, and now we got personal, so there's going to be some meaning to it. If it is meaningful to you, then you're going to certainly be a little bit more motivated in order to reach it. And then the last one that we have, number 3, possible. It's a complicated process. Becoming an A student or the captain of your team isn't something you can do overnight. When setting goals, it's important to consider what's actually possible and what's within your control. Sometimes people set goals they have little control over and then feel disappointed about the outcome. Focus on goals that are under your control so that you've got a greater chance to success. So by possible, we're certainly taking a look at something that you have the ability to control. So if you are choosing something that you don't have control over or little control over, the plausibility, the possibility of it being accomplished certainly starts to go down at that point. Next thing we have, your goals should be SMART. What does this mean? The goals you set, whether they're short-term or long-term, need to be savvy, measurable, active, reachable, time. So now we have this little anecdote about SMART. Josh, why don't you do savvy goal? Why don't you just finish off this page?
Alright.
Keep it easy.
Savvy goals are easy to understand and use. The opposite are goals that are big, confusing, or difficult to follow. To make your goals savvy, keep them specific and within the realm of possibility. Measurable goals define exactly what you intend to accomplish. Your destination should be crystal clear. To make sure your goals are measurable, get specific about the outcome you want. What do you really hope to achieve? Active goals tell you what specific action you're taking. Active goals include new words or verbs that keep you from moving forward. Reachable goals stretch you but still feel within reach. To check if your goal is reachable, ask yourself, do I feel that I can attain this? Is it realistic for me? Is this a challenge I feel comfortable taking? Motivation may differ if your goal seems
Okay, so we got savvy, measurable, active, reachable, and then on the very last one we have time goals. Time goals have clear dates when you'll be able to say, I did it. These deadlines give you something to aim for and look forward to. They also motivate you, kind of like a school assignment due dates. So you got clear dates as to when you're going to accomplish things. Now, what not so smart goals look like. So, by not so smart goals, we would mean goals that are probably not going to work or there is some kind of fault that would lie with them. So there's some kind of faulty reasoning that we have. Josh, where are we going?
what do you mean?
Who are you picking?
Evan.
Where am I right?
So be a better person.
This is a nice idea, but not a Navy or savvy goal. Why? Because it's vague. What does better mean? Can you more polite, more organized, stronger, aiming for a hazy goal like this could have you feel confused about your progress?
Okay, so this one is too general, too vague. What does it mean to be a better person if we don't have any kind of specifics? If we had something where I'm going to try to be more polite today, that could be a more specific goal, a more savvy goal that you to be able to go with. Evan, Tommy?
Be the best basketball player on the team. The problem with this goal is the measurement is pretty mushy. How do you measure best? Does it mean scoring the most points, having the highest shot percentage, starting every game, playing more minutes than any other player, getting the most positive press, being named MVP, being selected for the all-conference game, or knowing you tried your hardest? Depending on how you find best, your strategy for reaching your goal could change dramatically. It's important to have a more clearly measurable goal.
Okay, so whatever goal you're going long-term, short-term, you want to have a way that you can define it so that you know that you have achieved it, attained it at that point. Tommy, who's next?
A worthy aim, but there's no clear goal. What action might you take to feel better? Do you want to eat healthy food, start a fitness routine, act more confident in social situations, work harder in school, or help someone in your community. Active goals include strong action words that are guiding a positive direction.
Okay, so mentioning that we have to have a specific action we're gonna take. Nate, quick, next one. Okay, so if we're getting that A+ in chemistry, we want to make sure it's something that's going to be reachable, that it has practicality that's going to happen. This one, get a new bike next year. This goal isn't clearly timed. Just as you're more likely to work on a school assignment that has a specific due date, you're more likely to work on goals that have clear deadlines. So something within the next year is not going to be enough. A deadline like May 31st leaves no doubt as to when you intend to complete your goal. All right, so coming out to you right now, I got the multiple choice questions. There are only 8 of them. So answer these, and then we're going to run through the questions. So 8 questions. this passage was used 2 years ago. So when you were in 8th grade, it didn't count towards a Keystone score. It was a sample one that they were collecting data on so that you could understand better what people are doing. So what's the author's main purpose for using an emotional appeal in the beginning of the passage? Logan, what'd you go with? Said B. All right, to assert the goals are essential for individual success. So this isn't obviously within this room because I don't know what people are putting. 58% of folks who took this passage went with that answer. So you're with the vast majority, which generally comes off as being a good sign because the answer for this one is B. What do you think was the second most popular? C?
B. Kelvin.
26% went with C, 11% went with A, and then 5% went with D. All right? So the big thing here is, well, what's the difference between B and C? To assert the goals are essential for individual success or to show the goals can be fulfilled in more than one way. The main thing that we're looking at, and certainly that first page was talking about it, how do you get your dreams to come true? You try to have some goals for that individual success. So that first part, that emotional appeal about dreams, the whole point is for folks to understand that it's a key part for success. For number 2, make sure that you recognize that this says least essential for understanding the significance of the anecdote, the story about Tian. So which one is not important to really understanding the whole motivation?
B.
B. Her grandmother's highly respected herbal medicine doctor in Vietnam. Now that certainly could be inspiration, but when it comes to the goals that she is doing, that one isn't going to tie in as much. Vocab list 12 tomorrow. We're going to finish looking over the responses, and then tomorrow we're going to do the constructed response for this one. So still have the packet with you.